This is sort of one of those times where I'm gonna be a little bit more personal with you, a little bit more honest with you. I've been dealing with a pretty solid amount of burnout. The feeling that I've been having of not feeling very motivated and not feeling very like excited to make content has sort of like not entirely ceased. So I kind of want to go through and tell you a little bit about myself, sort of a shotgun blast of probably people being mad at me, and then see how the pieces fall and move on. Subscribe. This video is going to be me being 110% honest about all of my opinions in Gacha, in general, in content creation for the community. I'm going to explain why, because I think most of you guys think of me as somebody who is like honest and forthright about their opinions, which I am. The thing about me is that it tends to be that when I feel like I won't be heard as a person, I tend to just not speak. And I think that often in Gacha, I've sort of come to this realization that like my opinions to me are not nearly as like insane and nearly as nuclear as other people find them to be. I would say something that I thought was sort of like a mid, sort of uninteresting, to be honest, an uninteresting opinion about a game, and it would be responded to with people accusing me of rage baiting, of trying to start issues, like try to drama bait. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that you guys were like, I had no idea that it was going to be responded to in that way. And I'll be real, like, I think that that has affected me, because for me, I'm not going to say something that I don't believe. I'm not going to be dishonest. I'm not going to say yes if I mean no. But a lot of times if I think something and I don't really feel like having the conversation, I'll just say nothing. And that's a bad habit of mine, because I think it dilutes the person that I am and what's interesting about me. And it's also very much against the point of why I wanted to be a content creator in the first place, which is to be myself all the way. I'm going to go ahead and go through all of the hottest takes that I have, all of the opinions that I typically don't share. Because the thing that has sort of stuck with me is I've sort of gotten past this point of really caring about people disagreeing with me, as long as it's like disagreeing with me intellectually, not agreeing with my opinions. I don't really care that people hate me. Most people who do seem deeply unhappy and unwell, to be honest with you. And like the way that people hate on the internet, I just don't really take that seriously anymore. I think I kind of realized like, if you feel like that, you're kind of like, you got some stuff going on for you, and it doesn't really bother me that much. But really the thing that gets me is like, I don't think that there's that many hills in Gacha that are worth dying on. I like to have my opinions, and I don't think that there are very many of them that are worth taking a stand over, because to me, ultimately, they're Gacha games, and I like Gacha games, and they're fun. I just don't think any of it is that important to fight for my life on a lot of the time. And so it's not so much that I care that people disagree with me or I'm scared of the hate. It's just like, I don't really want to fight to the death over takes on games, or any games, but on Gacha games specifically, I guess. So the first thing I want to say is, I think the vast majority of people in the Gacha space take Gacha too seriously. This is viewers and also content creators. The level of snobbery and condescension and obsession over Gacha games is bizarre to me. I like Gacha games. I think they're fun. I also understand that they're more or less designed to be something that you log into every day for a little bit of time. I don't think Gacha games are a gameplay genre. I don't think Gacha is a genre itself. Gacha is a monetization model that often mimics another genre. So a Gacha game can, to me, be any gameplay genre. It just is built around monetization. And my opinion is that the difference between a Gacha game and a game that has Gacha elements or some Gacha monetization is that a Gacha game is built from monetization model up, where other games are built from gameplay and then will add additional monetization revolving around some kind of RNG like loot boxes after the fact, but the main focus of the design of the game is the game. And to me, the reason that this matters and the reason I'm bringing this up is because ultimately, I don't understand the tribalism to the level that people get with Gacha games. I'm accused of doing that a lot. I really don't think I have. I don't understand the obsession with protecting developers. I don't think that it's the same thing to be happy that a developer did something as to protect or defend them. I don't think that we need to protect the developers of games that are designed to get people into gambling. And so therefore, everything else I'm gonna say are usually things that I think that don't really matter that much, but will probably upset people anyway. I think that another thing that is missed a lot in the community is that you should criticize things when you enjoy them. And at least you need to be willing to acknowledge that things that you enjoy are criticizable. The insistence on ignoring imperfections in anything, but specifically gacha games, makes a lot of y'all naive, easy to manipulate consumers, and honestly just unbearable to deal with. You don't stay in relationships for a long time because of someone's potential. And when you do that, you tend to get taken advantage of in those types of relationships. So be critical, be willing to be critical of anything. And I'm saying this about Wuthering Waves as well. I think everything should be critiqued. And when you stop being willing to do that, you stop being intelligent about how you consume things. Someone who disagrees with you or disagrees with a generally held opinion, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're wrong. I'm fucking sick of this like L take, W take shit. It's stupid. It's usually like a matter of perspective. Like I see things from X way, you see things from other way, you know? But this labeling of opinions being bad is bizarre to me unless they're literally based on unfactual information. People are allowed to feel different ways about things. You can not like the opinion or disagree with the opinion, but the way that the community is so willing to label someone as being an unintelligent person or an invalid person in the space for having an opinion that doesn't match most people's opinions is really toxic and gross and weird, and I don't like it. The last thing I want to say in terms of this kind of like overall gacha, community thing, the story in gacha games kind of suck. Some of them are more bearable than others, but ultimately the gacha game stories are always heavily bloated with dialogue. Shinya brought up a good point, which is it's probably the cheapest and easiest way to keep people in the game as long as possible, to have these extremely bloated, wordy cutscenes and extremely bloated dialogue in the stories, and I find it kind of unbearable. Every gacha game I've ever played, and granted I understand that there are games that people say have very good stories. I've never played through Nikkei, so this is coming from my experience of the games that I've played. I've not played every single gacha game known to man, but the bloating in story in games is very severe. I think this was true of 1.1 of Wuthering Waves. I think that there were a lot of improvements from 1.0, but that was not necessarily the highest bar. I think the cutscenes were fantastic in Wuthering Waves. I think that the final boss was incredible, that final boss battle. I think the voice acting was significantly improved, other than, in my opinion, Yang and Rover was still pretty rough. I don't mind Abby, he's all right. If we had to have like a little guy pet Paimon kind of character, Abby's better than what I expected, to be honest with you. But this is true of HSR. HSR's dialogue bloat is extremely severe. I did most of Bellabog. I skipped through all of the Zhangjiao Lofu, and I've done a good amount of Penacony, and the dialogue bloat has been so severe. And the reason that I bring this up is because I think it's slop. I think it's crap content to just bloat dialogue to keep people in game as long as possible. I get that it's like a gotcha thing, but I can still call something like kind of crappy slop if I want to call it crappy slop, and I think it is. I find it deeply disengaging to the story when I am forced to hear the same information over and over and over again. It takes away the emotional stakes from me. It makes me not feel engaged with what's going on, engaged emotionally, and it makes me feel tired. And so I just want to say that because people really don't like when I say that about HSR specifically. I think it's true of all gacha games, and I still think it's crap, and I'm still gonna call it crap. Anyways, I want to go ahead and get into like game-specific hot takes that I have, I guess. With Genshin Impact, I'm just gonna start with them first because I don't have that many thoughts because I haven't played the game in years, and people heavily over-exaggerate the things that I say about the game. The difference in opinions, in my opinion, regarding the game, in terms of like people who hate the game and people who love the game, tends to be very adjacent to when they started playing the game. If you started playing the game early on into its development, you're probably a lot more likely to hate the game because you saw all of the crap moves that they made and all of the ways that they still don't listen to players. If you started playing Genshin Impact later into development. You probably started with a lot more of the QOL that took us a year to get, and don't see as many of the flaws because you have a lot more of the nice stuff and you have a much longer honeymoon period. That is fine. I think y'all are annoying who refuse to see any problems with the game, and I think a lot of y'all lack the perspective of having been somebody who played on early into development, and it makes you bad at understanding why people are upset, and maybe you should stop engaging with the content because you just straight up don't get it. I don't care if you play Genshin Impact. I don't think less of you don't play Genshin Impact. I do think you're annoying if you're a mint picker about it. You can enjoy things and also acknowledge that they're not perfect. I really like the Twilight series. It's complete garbage, complete slop novels, but I enjoy it because it's stupid and funny and it makes my brain rot and it's fun. I don't know. You can enjoy things like that. I'm gonna get into Honkai Star Rail. It's probably gonna be the most nuclear part of this video. Just gonna be honest with you. This is my opinion. I'd like to state that very, very clearly. I will also additionally admit that there is a possibility that most of my gripes are connected to the fact that it's a turn-based game, and I guess in my mind that there are ways to be more innovative with turn-based combat, but maybe we can only just do the same things over and over. So who knows? Maybe Hoyoverse doesn't make enough money to do anything really innovative. I mean, who knows what their bank accounts look like? So my opinion about Honkai Star Rail is that it's kind of in its like Genshin slop era. It took about a year. I think Divergent Universe and Apocalyptic Shadow are pretty low effort game modes where they sort of jumbled around concepts and added very little to the game. I think it's weird that it's being applauded as like another one of the like, oh my god, Genshin could never, they added more endgame things, when realistically Apocalyptic Shadow is really boring and dumb. Divergent Universe is just simulated universe, but overly complicated for no reason. I don't understand why they added so many mechanics to a game mode where ultimately the purpose of it is to not have to play it. I thought Apocalyptic Shadow was a cakewalk. I kind of was under the impression, maybe that's my fault, that Apocalyptic Shadow was supposed to be more geared towards single target, but realistically, the same characters that were good are still good in Apocalyptic Shadow, and the same characters that were bad or mid are still bad or mid, and whatever, it's fine. But yeah, I don't think that these were really anything innovative or interesting. It was more shit to do for a couple extra gems, and that's fine. But I don't think it is all that interesting or inventive or creative or anything like that. It's just kind of the same stuff with a little bit of different seasoning on it. They put some garlic powder instead of just salt. Like, okay, thank you, that's cool. But like, I guess to me, Hoyoverse makes enough money that they can innovate, but it's whatever. I think HSR has some of the most overhyped story ever. I think that the lore is actually really interesting when you get into the lore of it. It's fine, I guess, for a gacha game, but the presentation of most of the HSR story, specifically in Penacony, takes me out of it. It's not that enjoyable. I don't really want to sit through 4 hours of standing still and looking at a character move their mouth and not much else happening to get to like 1 or 2 really good cutscenes that are actually engaging, interesting, or satisfying. So my opinion on the meta state of Honkai Star Rail right now is that the game is actually too easy. It's sort of annoying to me that if you have the right characters, there's not really like any more strategy left to the game. It's a turn-based strategy game ultimately, right? Like that's what turn-based is, it's strategy. I finished MOC 12 and also Apocalyptic Shadow with a Firefly that was not fully ascended. She was level 70, but not ascended, so she didn't have her ascension trace. Her traces were all around maybe level 6. Her relics were unleveled, like some of them, I think she had at least 3 that were either unleveled or like level 5 or something, like not leveled. Her light cone, it was her signature, but was like level 60, and it was E0. All of my premium characters are E0, and I completed Apocalyptic Shadow and MOC 12 in 1 shot. My other team was an Acheron team, obviously, but it's just kind of lame that with just kind of the right units, you end up being able to remove any amount of strategy from the game. I think it's dumb. I can't speak to how difficult it is without those units because I have them and I'm not gonna try to build other units just because. But I think it's dumb that you can remove strategy from a strategy game with realistically an account like mine is really relatable to an account that was probably free to play from day one. If you're a newer player, it's not going to be as relatable, but from day one free to play player absolutely could have an account like mine, could have stats like mine. To be able to trivialize any strategy or any of the mechanics or anything about the combat with just having essentially Ruan Mei is really lame. I'd also like to have a small gripe that everybody who has ever told me I had a skill issue in HSR who was playing with Ruan Mei when I didn't have Ruan Mei can suck my nuts. Ruan Mei removes skill from the game. She is insanely broken, way more broken than I understood until I had her on my account. And if you think that you have skill playing with Ruan Mei teams, you're smoking crack. and you're on crazy copium. Ruan Mei is so insanely busted, and I cannot believe how many people told me that I was having trouble clearing stuff because of a skill issue, when the reality of the situation is I just didn't have the easy button character. You are no longer allowed to tell nobody's skill issue if you are playing with Ruan Mei, and especially if they are not playing with Ruan Mei. Another issue that I'd like to have with the HSR community is that I was always right about Dr. Ratio. He was a situational unit that was given away for free because he was situational. The amount of hate that I got for that take, when the reality was that those videos were about totally other concepts, was whack as fuck. Did I joke later on that Ratio was the worst unit in the game and worse than Arlen? Yeah, absolutely, because I was making fun of y'all. Is that what I genuinely thought? No, obviously not, because it's obviously wrong. I'm sure he's very good if you have all of the exact light cones and all the exact characters with all the exact eidolons and all the exact relics and all the exact He was situational. He was always situational, and he was always a difficult thing to learn for a new player, as in a player that was new to the game. Thank you very much. I'd like to say that I think a large amount of the community doesn't really know that much about Honkai Star Rail. Not about the specific mechanics or anything like that. I think that a vast majority of the community hears the conclusions spoon-fed to them by guide makers and other content creators, but they don't actually understand why those conclusions are true. And so they just parrot crap information based off of things that they don't really understand. Y'all like to yell skill issue, but reality is that HSR is not a skill-based game. It is an algebra-based game. The fact is that you can guarantee that you win if you have exact stat A, B, and C. And so like maybe pipe down on how cool that makes you. You know what I mean? Like it's fine that you know it, but I think a vast majority of people don't genuinely know that much about HSR. And the number of times I've had the most asinine advice given to me, or the most asinine things like said to me as if I was an idiot for not doing them, when the reality was it's like they genuinely did not understand enough about the game to be talking, is insane. It's okay if you understand just like the base numbers and stuff that you need to complete tasks or to make your character good. Don't act like you actually fully understand the game, because the vast majority of you, if you don't have Ruan Mei, you're not going to know how to build a team. You're not gonna know how to help somebody else build a team, and I just don't really want to hear it anymore. I think it's weird that the ages of the characters in Hoyo games are always ambiguous. I'm not gonna really elaborate too much on why I think that is. Most of y'all, additionally, are on the way to having Genshin levels of cope about the game. I said months ago that I thought that this was going to happen, that the community was going to be more and more like Genshin's community. People were really upset at me about that, really hated that take. It was true though. As time has gone on, the community has gotten more and more like the mindset of Genshin Impact's community. Good luck with that. It seems like it's not that much fun to live your life like that, but like the reality is HSR is an okay game. It's a great game for playing on your phone, and a game that requires relatively little of your time day to day. I think the story takes way too long most of the time because the dialogue bloat. But in general, I think it's a nice side game. But acting like it's God's gift to gaming is so bizarre to me. I think a lot of people have a really bad amount of copium, a really bad amount of sunken cost fallacy. Y'all wanted this to be the it's not Genshin thing. And I get that, because for the longest time, kind of for a lot of people, the only two games that were really worth playing were Genshin or HSR. But the way that y'all now are refusing to see any flaws, or refusing to hear any criticism, or refusing to hear any personal preference or opinion against the game and call it rage bait, sounds like a certain community to me. I don't know which one, but it does sound like another community. I'd also like to say at the end of this HSR section, the Yomi Holic contracts were real. This is technically more about ZZZ, but it's whatever. I don't really want to make a section on that yet because the game's not out. But the Yomi Holic contracts were real. They were always real. And there are creators out there that have expressly said, I am under a Yomi Holic contract. Quite literally, the only thing you need to do to prove that Yomi Holic contracts were real are to put it in your YouTube search bar, Yomi Holic, press enter, and you will see many people who are in ZZZ and Genshin content making content under a Yomi Holic contract. Denying that those contracts exist still to this day is so bizarre. You could be fine that they exist. Pretending that they didn't exist or pretending like they were made up is so incredibly dented. And finally, I'd like to talk about Wuthering Waves. Wowie wow wow. The Kuro simp is gonna talk badly or have criticism for woo-wah, whoever thought? As if I haven't always had criticism for the game. What I'd like to say first off is that I like the game a lot, and I'm happy that the devs are listening, and I'm happy that they're working hard to fix issues. My personal opinion on Wuthering Waves right now is that I think it's followed a bit too closely in Genshin Impact's footsteps, specifically regarding how they're doing patch updates and like, you know, the structure of releases and new content and stuff. I think that the combat is very good and very satisfying, and I like it a lot. I hope that in the future it does more to differentiate itself from being so much like Genshin in terms of how it's doing its content right now, because it is giving very similar and it's not exactly what I personally would have wanted. I didn't really want like a full-on Genshin 2, and sometimes it does feel like Genshin but with like QOL, and some people really wanted that, and that's totally fine. I would like more or different from the game, but I'm willing to wait. Again, like I said, to be honest, the biggest gripe that I have about Wuthering Waves right now is that the camera and auto lock still isn't fucking fixed. They said that they were going to address it in a previous like dev note, and then it wasn't in the patch notes for the update, and then it wasn't fixed. And in some cases, I'm gonna be honest, it kind of feels worse. I'm pretty upset that it wasn't addressed, like what happened or why they didn't fix it, or if it's been fixed, or if they're adjusting it, or anything at all. It feels miserable to play Encore, who is my favorite unit, but because there is an auto lock that is on, regardless of me having turned off every camera lock and every auto lock setting in the settings, super fucking frustrating. It does actually prevent me from wanting to play as much because I don't like this auto lock feature. They need to fix it in some way. I don't like being forced to manually lock on all the time, especially because the manual lock system sort of sucks balls. It is one of the biggest inhibitors of my enjoyment of the game, and maybe other people don't have that, or maybe people don't feel that. I've heard that a lot of people have it worse on mobile, but my God, I'd really like that to be adjusted and fixed. And the fact that it wasn't even addressed why it's not fixed in this patch was really annoying to me. I want to say again, the story in 1.1 was better than 1.0. I think the voice acting is much improved, and I'm glad about that. The amount that they repeated information and yapped over and over and over and over and over again was a bit frustrating to me. It takes me out of the enjoyment of the story, in my opinion. I just wish we could say it maybe once or twice and then maybe not 5 times, because it really did feel like I could have just hit skip through all of the dialogue except for the cutscenes and missed absolutely nothing that happened. And it kind of made me feel like there wasn't a lot of emotional stakes. It kind of took me out of being engaged with the story and excited for the story. And like, that sucks. I was actually really interested in the relationship between Jue and Jinshi. I thought that the lore drops were really interesting and I'd like to learn more, but it's just really hard to care when something that should have taken like an hour of dialogue going back and forth took about 3. I think that this is a gacha problem, is sort of what I'm realizing. I just wish that it wasn't like that, and I don't want to have to like skip dialogue. I want to be able to feel like all the dialogue is worthwhile for me to hear, because I like Wuwa, I like the characterization, I'm interested in the story, I want to know what's going on. But when like there's so much dialogue that is just gobbledygook and just word soup about like the fake science about what's going on, it just really takes me out of it. The game needs a lot of work to reach its potential, in my opinion. I think it has a ton of potential. I've said over and over again that I think it has great bones, and I am willing to see, I'm willing to be hopeful, right? But the way that the community is like already starting this tribalism bullshit is so incredibly frustrating. It's already starting this like, oh, well, if you have an opinion that isn't the same as mine, or if you're critical or any of that stuff, that you're bad and you're toxic and you're negative. If you want to see what happens when you don't hold games to high standards, go play Genshin. If you want a hug box, go watch Genshin Impact content creators. But criticism for games and in general in life is a good thing, as long as it's constructive, and you should embrace it. The fact that I'm already seeing so many people just be like, toxic woo-wah creators who are critical, blah, blah, blah. You can have your copium if you'd like, but don't call it toxic when other people do have things that need to be changed, or that they want to be changed, or they want to be looked at. Having conversations about things being imperfect is a good thing. It's a positive thing and can lead to great benefits. Kind of my hot takes. I don't think a lot of them are that hot, because realistically what I'm saying is my opinion and how I feel. Wow, very scary, nuclear, terrifying, and bad. You can disagree, and that's like fine. I don't really care, but I just don't really feel like continuing to not say my full opinion out of like exhaustion almost, because it's not fear. I just feel tired, because a lot of this shit, again, it's gacha, and I just don't really feel like dying on hills regarding gacha games. Because a lot of it just feels like Power Ranger bullshit. Like, oh, you think that the blue Power Ranger is cooler than the red Power Ranger? I think that you should die then, and you're a bad person, and you don't know anything. I was just talking about Power Rangers. You know what I mean? They're gacha games. It's fine. We can enjoy them, and we can also acknowledge that they're fucking gacha games. To hope that this doesn't make everybody hate me now and not want to watch my content or whatever. I don't really know if I care that much, but this feeling of not feeling like it's worth it to be honest is just about the worst possible thing in the world for me. If y'all are enraged by me having personal opinions about gacha games, then that reflects a lot about you. I just want to be honest. I'm not going to continue this like behavior of mine where I just hold back if I don't feel like having the argument. And if y'all want to argue, you're welcome to squabble along in the comments. I'm just not really interested. I hope that I've at least logically explained things in a way that makes you feel like you understand why I feel the way that I do. I don't want to be somebody that's like overly biased and overly tribalistic and highly incendiary all the time. I do it a little bit, but more so I care that I am honest. That's the whole point of being a content creator for me. If I can't be my honest, full and true self and I feel like I'm not allowed to, or I feel like I don't want to, kind of no point in me going live. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Go ahead and rate my nuclear take level if you'd like. Come join us on Twitch if you ever have time. You'll get one benefit of your choice: PP size, taller height, nicer hair, bigger ass, whatever you want. You got it. You want it, you get it. And I'll see y'all later. This is sort of me putting out the shotgun blast so that I can just get to work, because I've kind of not really wanted to get to work for a couple days, and that fucking sucks. I'll see y'all later. Love yourself, love your neighbor. Bye-bye!